Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarubhane avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. So, as you have seen, today we are starting the discussion of one of the four yogas which Swami Vivekananda has mentioned. What are the yogas? Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Raj Yoga. So Raj Yoga we have studied a little, just an introduction. We have studied Indian psychology, what Patanjali Yoga Sutra says and also what Swami Vivekananda says. Jnana Yoga we will start because we've already done the introduction of Vedanta. We are now in a position to understand a little. So Karma Yoga is very necessary for understanding the Gita. So we will start that today, and if I may say so, hardly anyone has thrown such wonderful insight on this subject in the modern age, at least, as Swami Vivekananda has done. So to understand the subject, his writings are, I think, one of the best methods. So before starting the actual text, first just let us see what karma means, what Swami Vivekananda says about karma. So, as I mentioned many times, each word in Sanskrit is derived from a root. Then we apply some suffix and all and make the word. So the word karma is also derived from a root which is kri. Kri means to do. So all action is karma. Of course, now the word is well accepted in the English language also. And technically this word also means the effects of actions. Effects of actions means what we have done in the past, those actions will have their effects. So generally we can just assume that in Karma Yoga we simply have to do with the word karma as meaning work. We all know what is work. Now, before understanding what yoga is all about, we should know what state we are in. Like the prayer we chanted, Asatu ma sadgamaya means from untruth lead us to truth. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya means from darkness lead us to light. And of course from death lead us to immortality. That was the prayer. So from darkness lead us to light means we are in darkness. We don't know what we are doing, why we are doing. So naturally, we also don't know how to do what we are doing. Because the question of how comes only when the goal is set before our eyes. Currently, we are in darkness because we are completely entangled. Entangled in what? Entangled in the web of karma, web of our own actions. And we are dreaming that someday some miracle will happen and somehow we will get out and we will get what we are seeking. We have very little idea of what we are seeking, but we think that we will get something which we are all striving for. But unfortunately, miracles generally don't happen. That's the problem with miracles. So, to understand the state we are in, let us see a small diagram which shows the endless cycle of karma. So this, see, interesting part of this image. Whichever path you take, you can't come out. So actually this is in the spiritual tradition, also in the Tibetan spiritual tradition, this diagram is there. Whichever path you take, you'll be running round and round. You can't come out. There is no escape. So they show this image in their tradition to denote the endless cycle of karma. So we are in this middle, somewhere here. And whichever way we go, there is no escape. You can't come out. We all want to escape, actually. That escape is calling us again and again. But till we know how to perform karma correctly, we cannot escape. We'll go into that, all the details will go of why we cannot escape and all that. So in the Tibetan tradition, there is also a diagram which shows this. See here, those who are online cannot see, it is stuck, I think. This is the Tibetan prayer wheel in the Buddhist tradition. So you can see in the middle, right in the middle, if you see, the same diagram is done, is drawn. So this represents the endless cycle of karma in which we are caught. This we have to understand, that our state should be much higher than where we are at present. Without understanding this, we cannot understand that we are in bondage. And without understanding that this bondage, without feeling that bondage, there will be no inclination to strive for freedom. And each yoga is all about freedom. That is all. So, I found it very interesting, that's why I shared with you. Now let's start with what Swami Vivekananda, how beautifully he explains this. So just some points. Online I cannot show the diagram, something is stuck, so afterwards I will insert. You can see on the YouTube. So those who are present, they can see these points, what in the first chapter which we will discuss, what Swami Vivekananda says. First he tells us what is the true goal of human life. Then he defines character. Then he tells us what is the source of all knowledge. Fifth, how to develop willpower. Then learning how to work, balance between work and renunciation, and the ideal of Karma Yoga. So all these are told in this one small chapter. Each word is so important here. So let us start with what he says about this, our being caught in this cycle of karma. What is our state? Swami Vivekananda describes this like only he can. He says, we are like tiny boats in a tempest. You know, when there's billowing sea, huge waves, one tiny boat is there, completely out of control. So we are like that boat, raised one moment on the foamy crest of a billow and dashed down into a yawning chasm the next, rolling to and fro at the mercy of good and bad actions, a powerless, helpless wreck in an ever-raging, ever-rushing, uncompromising current of cause and effect. A little moth placed under the wheel of causation, which rolls on, crushing everything in its way, and waits not for the widow's tears or the orphan's cry. The heart sinks at the idea, yet this is the law of nature. So we are like that small boat or like that small moth which is being crushed under the law of causation, whether we want it or not. Whether we want it or not, we'll fall sick. Whether we want it or not, we will face the ravages of nature. We will be struck by diseases at some time or the other. And finally, of course, the body will also perish. So this is the state. And to free all of us from this state is the goal of all the yogas. Naturally, also Karma Yoga. So karma means work, and in a broader way, it also denotes the effect of work, the consequences of work. And in Indian religions, the term specifically refers to the principle of cause and effect. So we say that we are caught in the karma. Means what? We are caught in this principle of cause and effect from which we cannot get out. So this is called the principle of karma in all our scriptures, where intent and actions of an individual influence the future of that individual. Our actions, our intents will influence our own future. So what is the relation? The relation is very simple in one word. Karma and our future. What is the relation? It is described in the simplest way in our Upanishads. What? Punya, good karma, and Papa is bad karma. So it says, Punyo vai punyena karmana bhavati. By good karma, we become good. All good will come to us. Papa papena iti. And by doing bad karma, which is called papa, all the bad things will befall us. So there's a lot to say about this, but for this current discussion, this is enough if you understand this. So this is the law of causation. Do good, you get good. If you do bad, you get bad. That is the simple thing. In the Bible also it is said that as we sow, we reap. So we are all familiar with this principle in some way or the other. So this much about the principle of karma in a very short form. Now what Swamiji says, what is the true goal of life? We don't know, unfortunately. We are catching whatever we get at hand. Whatever immediately seems to us to be pleasurable, we think that we will be happy to get whatever is available easily. We catch that, we are dissatisfied, we catch something else, and we spend our life in this way because we don't know what we are seeking. So what is the true goal? Swami Vivekananda says, he says, the goal of mankind is knowledge, is freedom. That is the one ideal placed before us by Eastern philosophy. Pleasure is not the goal of man, but knowledge. Pleasure here means worldly pleasure, whatever you can get from the objects of the world. Knowledge is the goal, but not ordinary knowledge. Knowledge of the sciences, etc., we all know, but knowledge of the sciences covers, as it were, only part of our lives. But the knowledge which spirituality brings to us is eternal, as infinite as the truth it preaches. So, what truth does spirituality preach? The truth is about God. God is infinite. That is why knowledge of God is also infinite. That is the only true knowledge. As Sri Ramakrishna says, that knowledge of God is the true knowledge, all other knowledge is as good as ignorance. So pleasure cannot be the goal of man. This is the first thing we have to learn. Because pleasure and happiness come to an end. Swami Vivekananda says, it is a mistake to suppose that pleasure is our goal. Everything is in a state of flux. Everything comes and goes. He says, bodies and minds change. Misery, happiness, good and evil come and go. Days and years roll on. Life comes and goes. So what remains? There is only one thing which neither comes and goes. That is the Atman or the soul. And reaching that will give us freedom, nothing else. So because we think pleasure to be our goal, Swami Vivekananda says that is the only cause. This misunderstanding is the cause of all the miseries in this world. I quote him, the cause of all miseries we have in this world is that men foolishly think pleasure to be the ideal to strive for. After a time, we find that it is not worldly happiness we want, but knowledge. We are actually going towards knowledge. And both pleasure and pain are great teachers, and that he learns as much from evil as from good. We all try to avoid evil, but both are good teachers, good as well as evil. As pleasure and pain pass before his soul, they have upon it different pictures, and the result of the combined impressions is what is called a man's character. This is the definition of character which Swami Vivekananda makes. What is the definition of character if we just search? The way someone thinks, feels and behaves, someone's personality. Our character traits represent our personality, our morals, our ethics, our beliefs. Everything is included in that word, character. So how is character formed? Swamiji says, as pleasure and pain pass before our soul, pleasure comes, goes. Some evil comes, goes. We are happy today, we are unhappy tomorrow. All these leave an impression upon the soul or upon the mind. And both of these are very great teachers. Pleasure as well as pain. If only we are fit to learn from them. If we are not fit, then hundreds of things can happen and we won't change. Our nature will be the same. We will remain where we started. That capacity to learn has to develop. And when will that develop? When we gain sufficient maturity. When we try to really inquire into the mystery of life. The thought should come to us. Why it is that we are always running but never reaching? The whole life, we still have, at the end of the life also, we still have that feeling that we have not got what we wanted. Why is that? So only when someone starts deeply to think over that, he will gain the maturity to learn from all his experiences. Then both pleasure and pain will lead him to his true goal, which is freedom. So, this is how character is formed. And Swami Vivekananda says after this, again amplifying this, he says, if you take the character of any man, what is it? It is just an aggregate of tendencies, what in Sanskrit is called sanskaras, impressions. Good and evil are leaving their impressions. So the aggregate of all those things form our character, the sum total of the bent of our mind. And in the formation of character, he says that we will find that misery and happiness are equal factors in the formation of character. Good and evil have equal share in molding character. And in some instances, misery is a greater teacher than happiness. In studying the great characters that the world has produced, he says, I dare say in the vast majority of cases, it would be found that it was misery that taught more than happiness. It was poverty that taught more than wealth. It was blows that brought out the inner fire more than praise. So we should realize that both good and evil have the place in our life, some place in our life. Often we come across, spoiled children of indulgent parents, those who have much more money than they need. So, if we just study, we will find that rarely do those spoiled persons born with a silver spoon in their mouth, so to say, very rarely they achieve something worthwhile in life. They have everything on a platter. They don't need to work for anything. Since the struggle is completely lacking from their life, they cannot achieve anything worthwhile. Just to understand this, just let us take a very simple example. You are all familiar with gyms and all that. So in gym, what are we doing? When we go to train, what are we doing? We are lifting some weights, or in cardio we are running against, in a treadmill, what are we doing? The treadmill is running in an opposite direction and we are running in the other way. And in weights, what are we doing? The muscles are struggling against gravity to lift something. That struggle leads to the development of the muscles, because the muscles are straining against obstacles. We have to put in effort to lift those weights. If we keep on lying down in our bed the whole day, can we train our muscles? It is impossible, because the muscles don't have to resist anything. So how will that strength come? How will that training come? Similar is the case with the mind. When we struggle against obstacles, the mind is developed. We exert ourselves and manufacture good karma or tendencies. So just to give a few quotations, so when Swami Vivekananda says this, that misery is often a greater teacher, we should know that he is not the only one who says this. I will quote some famous people. An author, Elizabeth Ross, says, the most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, who have experienced all these and have found their way out of those depths. They have struggled and conquered those things. Then Helen Keller, you must have heard about Helen Keller, all of you. She says, character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experiences of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. Then Victor Hugo says, it is by suffering that human beings become angels. Many other quotations can be cited, but these are enough. So, all these people, all the great people have experienced that without some kind of trial, without some kind of struggle, if only someone lives in an ease and comfort, his character can never be developed. Character can only be developed through struggle. Struggle for what? Struggle for some higher ideal. Not struggling for our selfish things. That won't develop our character. So why is character important? Why is so much stress Swami Vivekananda lays on this character? Because he himself says, at the final end, we will find that money does not pay, nor name, fame does not pay, nor learning. It is love that pays, it is character that cleaves its way through adamantine walls of difficulties. All these things don't pay, finally. If a person relies only on those things, at the end he will find that his life is a failure. See, all these things which he mentions, money, name, fame, etc. So all those who are interested in sports and all know the name of Mike Tyson. Youngest ever heavyweight champion, and his record, as far as I know, is still unbroken. And you know how popular boxing is in North America, you all know. So at the peak of his career, just imagine fame, money, followers, what he didn't have. If any man can aspire for anything worldly, he had everything. That Mike Tyson says, I quote, it is if you open the Wikipedia and search for Mike Tyson, it will come. I took it from there. He says, my whole life has been a failure. And not only that, he says, I am ashamed of myself. So finally, what happens? Finally, we find that in life's struggle, it is only character, our inner strength, which can truly give us peace and fulfillment. How? That is a different subject. We won't go into that now. That is why Swami Vivekananda lays so much stress in all his writings. He lays so much stress on building our character. This is the second point. Now, we have seen that Swami Vivekananda says that our true goal in life is not the small pleasures which we get in this world, which come and go, but our true goal is knowledge. Knowledge removes ignorance. Money, name or fame can't remove ignorance. And we have seen before in our earlier discussions that our only cause of misery in this world is ignorance. Ignorance of our true nature, ignorance of God. That can only be removed by knowledge, not by our cars and buildings and our bank balance. Nothing can remove ignorance. So our true goal is knowledge. This much is clear. Now, if we want to reach our true goal, we have to know where it resides. If we want something, then we should know where it is. If we go on searching for something, we should have an idea of the location. If you want to go to Toronto, we should know on a map where is Toronto. Then look for the means to go, train or car or whatever. So we have to know where does knowledge reside if we want to attain knowledge. This knowledge is neither in the sun nor the moon nor in Alaska nor anybody nor anywhere else. Swami Vivekananda says this knowledge is inherent in human beings. We think that knowledge comes from books. No, knowledge does not come from books. How we will see? It is very simple. So Swami Vivekananda says no knowledge comes from outside. It is all inside. What we say a man knows should, in strict psychological language, be what he discovers or unveils. What a man learns actually is what he discovers. How? By taking the cover of his own soul, which is a mine of infinite knowledge. So nothing comes from outside, Swami Vivekananda says. Knowledge is not in books. What do books do then? Why do we, after reading some books, why do we feel that we know more? What do those books do? They just help us in unveiling, uncovering a part of our own soul, a part of our own mind. Those are just suggestions. Like if a person has some treasure buried in the house, a person comes and tells him, see, dig here, you will find so many riches. So that person has not given him any riches. He has just told him where to look for. So here also, books or any other source of knowledge from outside, they just give the stimulus. And then that leads to the activity of our mind. That activity of our mind reveals knowledge which was already there. Swami Vivekananda gives a very simple example to prove this. He says, we say that Newton discovered gravitation. Was it sitting anywhere in a corner waiting for him? Did Newton go and search in his house and found gravitation in a corner? No. Then this knowledge was where? This knowledge was in his own mind. The time came and he found out. All knowledge that the world has ever received comes from the mind. Mind here means what? Mind actually means soul. Swami Vivekananda says both, soul and mind. Why does he say mind? Because the soul is manifesting through the mind. The purer the mind, the greater the manifestation of knowledge. That is why such great knowledge is manifested in saints, because their mind is pure. So we should understand this in this way, that all knowledge that the world has ever received comes from the mind, means it is manifested in the mind. The infinite library of the universe is in your own mind. The external world is simply the suggestion, the occasion which sets you to study your own mind. But the object of study is always your mind, nothing else. So what happened in Newton's case? How did he discover the principle of gravitation? He saw an apple fall. That is said. So we all have seen apples fall or something fall. But we couldn't discover the law. Others couldn't discover the law. If the knowledge was in the falling of an apple, then all persons who saw that could discover the law of gravitation. Why only Newton discovered? Because the suggestion which came from the falling of an apple stimulated his mind. That stimulation led him to discover the knowledge which was already there. So what did he do? Swamiji says, Newton, when he saw that apple fall, he rearranged all the previous links of thought in his mind and discovered a new link among them. That link is what we call the law of gravitation. So the law of gravitation was not in the apple or anywhere else. That knowledge was already there. It was discovered by Newton because his mind was fit. So all knowledge, Swami Vivekananda says, I again quote him, all knowledge, secular or spiritual, is in the human mind or the human soul. In many cases, it is not discovered. In people like us, ordinary people, that knowledge lies covered by ignorance. And when the covering is slowly taken off, we say we are learning. And the advance of knowledge is made by the advance of the process of uncovering. The more it is uncovered, the more knowledgeable we are. Like the example which you have seen, a person has a treasure in his house. So he starts digging. He gets 1 coin, 10 coins, 100 coins. So the treasure was already there. As he begins to dig more and more, he becomes richer by degrees. So here also, as we uncover our soul, our mind, we become knowledgeable, more knowledgeable by degrees. And the person from whom this covering is completely gone, he is all-knowing. That covering is completely gone means he stands face to face with God. There is no obstruction. So when a person has reached that high level, then because God is all-knowing, he also becomes omniscient. So, omniscient means what? We should realize that Swami Vivekananda has told in another place that omniscient does not mean that he will gain every knowledge of everything in the world. He will learn to fly an aeroplane or he will learn to fly a rocket. That is not what omniscience means. People like Jesus and Buddha were omniscient. Why? Because they knew, they had the knowledge of what lies behind this universe, from which everything comes. For example, this house is made of wood. A person who comes here for the first time may not have gone throughout the whole house, that he knows where each thing is kept. No. But he may have the knowledge of wood. If he knows what that wood is, he knows what this whole house is. Because the house is actually nothing but wood. And with a little searching, he can have the whole knowledge of the house also if he desires. So these people are omniscient. How? Because they know the fundamental reality from which the whole world has come. And if they want, they can also learn the particulars. And they can learn it at an amazing speed, which we cannot even imagine. Like people like Swami Vivekananda could memorize a whole book by just reading once. Because their minds are so concentrated. Such powerful minds they have got. So this is what omniscience means. That is why Swami Vivekananda says, there have been omniscient men and I believe there will be yet. In future also, such men will be born. So, like fire in a piece of flint, knowledge exists in the mind. We rub in the early days, in the cavemen, what they used to do, rub two pieces of wood. It used to ignite. So where was the fire? The fire was in the wood only. Friction was just the way of bringing it out. So Swami Vivekananda compares this and says, knowledge exists in the mind. Suggestion is the friction which brings it out. So when Newton saw the apple, that gave him the suggestion. Maybe he had seen the apple fall 100 times before. Most probably he had. But his mind was not then yet ready to accept that suggestion. But the 101st time, suddenly, his mind began thinking, why is the apple falling only downwards? Why is it not going upwards? So here also, if our minds are fit, then each suggestion which we receive from outside will lead to the uncovering of the knowledge which is in the soul. That suggestion can be happiness or misery. So again I quote Swamiji, he says, so with all our feeling and action, our tears and smiles, our joys and griefs, our weeping and our laughter, our curses and our blessings, our praises and our blames, every one of these, if we examine, we will find to have been brought out from within ourselves by so many blows. Blows here means suggestions. Tears and smiles, joys and griefs, weeping and laughter. Everything is brought on by those suggestions. If someone blames us for something, we manifest anger. If someone praises us, we become very happy. If someone takes us to a beautiful place, we become very happy. So all these things are only suggestions. And what we feel is the reaction from those suggestions. And all these suggestions plus reactions make us what we are. The same thing, the same suggestion from outside may invoke different feelings in us. We go to some beautiful place like Whistler and all. We are enjoying the scenery. Suddenly a phone call comes. Our dear friend has had a serious accident. Immediately that scenery will not bring us pleasure. Same thing outside. There is no difference. Immediately we rush back. The same suggestion which was giving us pleasure fails to do so in an instant. Why? Because our reaction has changed. So we see that everything from outside is only a suggestion. And what happens inside gives us knowledge. So all these blows or suggestions are called karma. Everything is karma. Work, action. Every mental and physical blow that is given to the soul, by which, as it were, fire is struck from it, and by which its own power and knowledge are discovered, is karma. Every blow, every suggestion is karma. Here, Swamiji is using the word in its widest sense. Everything is karma. So what prompts us to action is karma, and our action itself is also karma. Thus, we are doing karma all the time. That is why in the Gita it is said that even for one single moment, nahi kaschit kshanamapi. Kaschit means anyone. Kshanamapi means even for one moment. He cannot stay without work. Because breathing is also work. So like Swami Vivekananda says, thus we are doing karma all the time. I am talking to you, that is karma. You are listening, that is karma. We breathe, that is karma. We walk, karma. Everything we do, physical or mental, is karma. And it leaves its marks on us. It leaves its mark. We cannot get rid of that mark. We can decrease its influence or amplify it, so to say, but we cannot remove that. Once a mark is made, it's made. So generally we say karma, we define karma as an aggregate of small karmas. So the aggregate, the sum total of a large number of smaller works is defined as some worthy achievement. He has done a big work, we say. So that big work is what? It is just a combination of smaller works. If we stand near the seashore and hear the waves dashing against the shingle, we think it is such a great noise. And yet we know that one wave is really composed of millions and millions of minute waves. Each one of these is making a noise, but we don't catch that noise separately. It is only when they become a big aggregate that we hear that noise. Similarly, every pulsation of the heart is karma, is work. But certain kinds of karma we feel and they become tangible to us. Why? Because they are the aggregate of a large number of small works. Karma and its effect on character, Swami Vivekananda says, is the most tremendous power that man has to deal with. That is everything. All we are today and what we will be tomorrow is the result of this one thing: work and its effect on our character. So Swami Vivekananda says, a human being is as it were a center, and he is attracting the powers of the universe towards himself. And in that center is fusing them all and again sending them off in a big current. So he's standing, all the suggestions are coming. Good, bad, various type of experiences every day. Everything is entering our being. It is coming within us. And they undergo fusion there. Fusion means they lead as a whole to the development of, they give rise to so many thoughts in our mind. Then he says, good and misery, good and bad, misery and happiness are all running towards us, towards the human being, and clinging around him. And out of them, he fashions the mighty stream of tendency called character and throws it outwards. As he has the power of drawing in anything, so he has the power of throwing it out. So we can take in whatever we like. If we want to take in good, we can take in good. If we want to take in anything which harms us, we are free. There are so many places we can go to where unholy impressions will enter our minds and play their part in forming our character. So upon us depends what we will take. and how we will fashion it to form our character. This is the thing. So this process, when a man takes in impressions from outside and generates from them his character, this is a manifestation of our willpower. If a person doesn't have sufficient willpower, the impressions he takes will not lead to a formation of a good character. Things will come, they will be fused, and they will go out as our character. But what will go out will depend upon our willpower. For example, we know that some things are injurious to health. For example, smoking is injurious to health. Drinking alcohol is injurious to health. We go outside, we see so many advertisements, hoardings. For the bliss of Brahman, you drink this. Smoke this and you will find eternity. All these things we will see. Without having the iPhone 15, your life is absolutely worthless. So all these suggestions will come to us. Now it depends upon us. Our rational, our judgment, our willpower. So when a person of developed willpower, what will he say? No. All these stimulus, I know they only look, apparently they may be beneficial, but I know in the finally they will ruin me. So we will resist those things. And we will take in only what is good things. So only what is good will become a part of our character. That is the cause of having a very strong willpower. Because good and bad have already existed in the world since time immemorial and will continue to exist. Evil cannot be wiped out. It is impossible because it is another side of good. Without good, evil has no meaning. Without evil, good has no meaning. So those two will exist always. But if you are weak, why do doctors tell us eat a healthy diet, have a balanced diet, vitamin supplements, or etc., etc. So many things are there. Why? Because there are always in the atmosphere, there are always things to which we can be susceptible. There are always viruses. There are always something which can cause disease, infections. So how can we avoid them? How can we avoid those things influencing us? They will be there. We cannot wipe them out. It is impossible. It is enough for us if we escape their influence. How? We make the body strong. So even if those things come, for us it is as good as nothing. So here also, why does Swami Vivekananda say this about willpower? Because it is willpower which will prevent our mind from being influenced from those things which are not beneficial. Upon what does this willpower depend is the question now. Because we have seen what we have seen, that our character is made from the impressions we receive and how we react to them. That's okay, that's simple. Good and bad both are there in the outside world. This also we know. Upon us depends what we will receive and make a part of our character. Choice is ours. If we are weak, if we are susceptible, even the unhealthy things which are not beneficial will be accepted by us. like viruses, which goes into the body. Only if we are strong to resist those influences can we avoid them. So body we make strong by healthy food and medicine or whatever. And mind, what is the strength of mind? The strength of mind is called willpower. So Swami Vivekananda says, I quote him, all the actions that we see in the world, all the movements in human society, all the works that we have around us are simply the display of thought, the manifestation of the will of man. This is natural. Just a little examination will tell us. Right from the cavemen, if we just see, what did the cavemen have? Nature gave the caveman the same thing. Trees, vegetation, earth. Then man began to think. He saw that these things can give me much more. Nature can give me much more. If it rains, I need not stand outside, get soaked and become ill. No, what will I do? This tree is made up of wood. I can use this wood to make a covering of myself. So he made a house. Slowly, slowly, we all advanced in that way. So all the movements in human society are simply the display of thought. From the elevated thought of human beings have come all this development. And the manifestation of the will of man is nothing but this display of thought. Machines or instruments, cities, ships or men of war, all these are simply the manifestation of the will of man. Man wanted, human beings wanted, they did it. And this will is caused by character. And character is manufactured by karma. So how beautifully Swamiji leads us from one thing to another. First he tells us what is the true goal of humankind. That true goal, he proves to us, can only be attained by gaining knowledge. How is knowledge gained? Knowledge is gained by uncovering what lies behind our own mind. That uncovering can only be done by our own self, our own will. That will, how to manufacture it, how to strengthen it, that is the outcome of our karma. That is the outcome of our character, and character is the outcome of our karma. So one thing leads to another. What we do, what we think, what we receive, what we are susceptible to, all these are karma and they form a part of our character. This character leads to the development of will, and that will leads us to the final goal of human life, which is knowledge. This is the secret of willpower. Again, I quote Swami Vivekananda before ending. As is karma, so is the manifestation of the will. The men of mighty will the world has produced have all been tremendous workers, gigantic souls with wills powerful enough to overturn worlds. How did they get that will? It did not come suddenly. They got that will by persistent work. Persistent work through ages and ages, not for one day. Such a gigantic will as that of a Buddha or Jesus could not be obtained in one life, for we know who their fathers were. Millions and millions of carpenters like Joseph had gone, millions are still living. Millions of petty kings like Buddha's father had been in the world. If it was only a case of hereditary transmission, how do you account for this petty prince producing this great son whom half a world worships? How do you explain the gulf between the carpenter and his son, whom millions of human beings worship as God, that is Jesus Christ? It cannot be solved by the theory of heredity. The gigantic will which Buddha and Jesus threw over the world, how did it come? From where did it come? Whence came this accumulation of power? It must have been there through ages and ages, continually growing bigger and bigger until it burst on the society in a Buddha or a Jesus, even rolling down to the present day. So at the bottom, at the root of all this, what lies? By what is all this determined? It is determined by only one thing, that is karma. So because karma is so important, how to perform karma is also important. Otherwise, it cannot lead to the development of character, and therefore it cannot lead to the development of willpower. That is why the science of karma yoga has to be learnt. To do karma in such a way so as to get the maximum result and also lead us to the real goal which we are seeking. Like we want to travel towards Toronto, we want to go. So we have to know the route, the shortest route. We can walk, but if we keep on walking toward in circles, we will never reach anywhere. Even a short distance, even if we want to go to downtown from here, if we keep walking in circles, we will never reach there. Walking is karma, but if we don't do it in the proper way, we can never reach there. So we are all forced to do karma, even if we want or not. We are bound by our very own nature. But if we don't do in the proper way, we will find that we are still where we had left off. So that is why this science has to be learnt slowly and slowly. That is the importance. So that the diagram which we first saw, we are in that diagram, are you reaching anywhere? You are in the web, you cannot get out. You can walk the whole life, but you will never get anywhere. So we are also doing the same thing. We are spending our whole life in this journey. But at the end we find that we are still the same. Why? Because our karma is not being done properly. It is not being done with insight, not being done like a thoughtful person. To know that, we have to know the secret of this karma and how to perform karma in the right way. And that is why karma yoga is all about. That is what karma yoga is all about. That is why the first chapter Swami Vivekananda is named. It is his name is given by him only. Karma and its effect on character. This is what karma is. This is how we are manufacturing karma. This is how karma makes or breaks our character. And our character determines our willpower, which in turn leads us to the final goal. So all these things have been discussed in a very brief manner, of course, by Swamiji in this first chapter. Some things remain which we can take up later. So we will have to end here today. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna